welcome to Bentley's Backwoods Bushcraft, and this is Richard. So I'm sitting out here in a big old field of weeds, really, plants and weeds. I'm gonna go fishing here in a little bit, but I went to a combat martial art gym yesterday. I stopped off for the first time. I had never been in there before, and I'm gonna keep to myself right now. I'm gonna keep to myself the style of I do consider it a martial art. I do consider it a combat sport martial art. But anyway, I went into this gym and was talking with what I perceive to be the owner, obviously, of the gym. At least I'm pretty sure he was the owner. I never actually specifically asked him if he owned the place, but through our conversations and the way he was acting and talking, he was the owner. If not, he was definitely the person that was in charge. So anyway, we talked a little bit about a lot of stuff, our political, social, and pretty much everything that has to do with human beings. We're pretty much on the opposite spectrums of everything. I did get along with him and the other gentleman that I discussed, that I talked with, and they got along with me. It was really cool. I really enjoyed the conversation, but we just didn't see eye to eye on much of anything, except maybe combat skills. So anyway, I walked in there, introduced myself, asked them, the basic questions about when they're open and, what they do specifically and pricing and things of that nature. Just kind of had a general conversation. And I'm not 100% sure. This happened yesterday. I don't recall exactly how the topic got to this. He did ask me if I was any good at combat. He didn't actually use those particular words. I'm kind of paraphrasing. And I gave him the basic, not really type attitude. And he asked me, and then he came out and asked me if I was any good at knife fighting. And I said, well, no, not really. I said, and he had a water bottle in his hand. So he turned the water bottle and he pointed it at me like this, like it was a knife. And he said, well, what would you do if I attacked you like this? And he came at me with a water bottle. So again, I don't know if you guys have watched any of my videos, but I do have one video on knife defense. I personally believe, in my opinion and my experience, much more important than my opinion, my experience shows me that for me, that video is exactly what you need to do with the knife defense, and it's really the only thing that's ever really worked for me, and I'll link that video right here. Anyway, I did that. What I basically did was just got a hold of the hand that had the knife in it, and I went down. Now, he did not want to go to the ground, and he resisted that. Now, the good thing is if he goes to the ground, fine, I'm happy. If he doesn't go to the ground, fine, I'm happy. That's the point of the way I do my martial arts and my self-defense. Whatever you want to do is okay with me, because I will just adapt to that. So he did not want to go to the ground, and I knew he didn't want to go to the ground as soon as I felt that resistance. So I still perceived the struggle of trying to take him down. Now, at that moment, everything in his head was his perception of me attempting to take him to the ground. And he even mentioned, you're never going to get me to the ground. Well, it was never my intention to get him to the ground, but he believed it was, and that's all I needed. So, as soon as he said, you're never going to get me to the ground, I let go of him, and I was on one knee. I was kiza. I was on one knee kind of up, one knee down. And I had him off balance, which is all I wanted anyway. I had him off balance enough that he was resisting and pulling and trying to stop me from taking him to the ground. So as soon as he said, "You're never going to get me to the ground," I let go of him. And he kind of looked at me funny. I said, "Where's the knife?" And he looked, and it's gone. Wasn't anywhere to be seen. As a matter of fact, it was the gym I was in. We were right in front of the front door, and the front door was wide open, and the water bottle or the knife was out in the parking lot. So he looked at me and he's like, "What'd you do?" And that was the point. He had no clue. He never felt it. He didn't have any idea that I disarmed that knife. And I disarmed that knife almost at the exact same time I went to the ground. As a matter of fact, I was disarming the knife as I was going to the ground. He never knew that. He struggled with me for 5 or 6 seconds before he said, "Hey, you're never going to get me to the ground." And when he said that, I let go of him and backed off, and I said, and we had a discussion. And as soon as he saw the knife was outside, well, the water bottle was outside, he went out and got it, and he came back in. He high-fived me. He goes, "Dude, that was so freaking awesome." And we talked for a few more minutes, and I explained the concept of defanging the snake. Defanging the snake means to disarm the person, and the person's harmless. Now, I did tell him, I said, "Listen," I said, he was much more physically stronger than I was, absolutely. And if it had been a real-life stand-up street fight, he would have probably pummeled the crap out of me. And I told him that. I said, "You would have beat the crap out of me." I said, "No problem." I said, "But," I said, "after the fight was over, after you beat me up and I was laying on the ground unconscious, you didn't have the knife. You would have forgotten all about that. And even if you may have went to pick up the knife, but you may have even forgot about that too. But you would have walked away and most likely not stabbed me and killed me." So I survived the knife attack. We talked about that for 4 or 5 minutes. He was pretty astonished at that because I don't think he'd ever thought about that before, but he did agree with me. He goes, "Yeah," he goes, "I wouldn't have, after that, I wouldn't have stabbed you." He said, "I would have just left." I said, "Exactly." Now that was me disarming the knife and making sure it was away from everybody. That doesn't preclude the fact that if I had wanted to disarm the knife and keep it and then stab him with it, I could have done that too, but I chose not to do that. Now, we talked about that for a few minutes, and I still enjoyed the fact that he's high-fiving me and he was all excited and he had no clue I'd disarmed that knife. Then he came up with the bright idea. He goes, "Well, what if that had been a real knife?" So I pulled this knife out, opened it up, and handed it to him. There was about a half a dozen people in the dojo, and they all backed off. They were like, "Oh," and they backed off. Well, he and I went over to another section that was open and free of people, and he came at me with a knife. And same thing. It was gone. Knife was on the floor behind him. And another handshake and high five, and that's what really got us started to talking about other things, even though we disagreed with everything else. That's really what got started talking about it, because he never said he was amazed and appreciative of my skills, but you could see it in his eyes and his expressions, which I do appreciate. So yeah, when I disarmed the knife, he was all cool about talking with me and everything. So we sat and discussed martial arts and then other topics which we didn't agree with, but we talked about martial arts and stuff for a while. So again, I would really like you guys to watch my video on defending against knife attacks. Now, I will tell you this much. What I teach is extremely practical, extremely useful, and it works. The problem is that it's not flashy, it's not extensively difficult, anybody can do it. It just takes the desire to do it and the willingness to do it, and you're good to go. So anyway, again, you also always have to be of the mindset that if you get into a real knife fight, I mean a real knife fight, expect to be cut. Do not go into a knife fight and expect to come out of it clean and unbloodied, because that's looking for trouble. If you go into a knife fight, expect to get cut, and expect to get cut bad. That way, when it happens, you're good to go because you expect it. And if it doesn't happen, then you were damn lucky. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that little story out because it involves my martial arts, and I always like talking about my martial arts. I always like discussing my martial arts. I don't have a lot of extensive martial art fans on my channel, but it doesn't stop me from wanting to progress my martial arts and to express it here on this channel. So that's my little story about how I just impromptu. It was just an impromptu thing. I don't even know why he even come up with the "Are you good at knife attacks?" I don't know why he asked that particular, and then just came at me with the water bottle. But I demonstrated that it does work with the water bottle, and then I demonstrated that it does work with a real knife, and he was very appreciative of that. So make sure you watch the video. I believe it's going to be linked right here. So might be linked here. I don't know. I think it's over my left shoulder. Linked right there. Anyway, check that out, and thank you again for watching Bentley's Backwoods Bushcraft, and enjoy the outdoors, even if it's just your own backyard. Now let's go do some fishing.